Q and Review, celebrating 40 years of audio production, welcomes you to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast, recorded from our studio in the Bishopbriggs Media Centre and by our volunteers working from home. Keep up to date with Q and Review news via our Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, or Instagram at Q and Review. That's @CUEANDREVIEW, or get in touch with us directly by emailing information@qandreview.com. That's information @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling us on 0141 772 3979. Please like and share our podcast and give us constructive feedback.
Evening Times Sport, May 21. Celtic women make league-winning claim. It feels surreal. Report by Alison McConnell. The Celtic boardroom is a story of its own, with its vast array of memorabilia, honours and silverware, a collection of the club's most iconic moments from foundation to modern-day domination. It was fitting yesterday that Elina Sadiku, the coach of the women's side, should add the SWPL trophy to its collection, the first time the silverware has found a home at Celtic Park. It does not come with riches or significant prestige. Of 60,000 season ticket holders, there were just 7,624 interested enough in its journey to turn out to see final day drama. Patsy Gallagher's great-great-granddaughter, sporting the number 7 on her back, delivered a 90th minute winner that sealed Celtic's title on goal difference, a dramatic finale to an intriguing campaign. Sadiku said, "It still feels a bit surreal. I know how we won, but it has not yet sunk in. Being around the players, you can just watch and see how happy they are, and it was just an amazing evening." The achievement is a new kind of moment in Celtic's story, the first Scottish club now to boast title winners across both male and female teams. It gives the women's side a place in the modern entity that is Celtic in 2024. What is intriguing is where it goes from here. Sadiku has no ambiguity about the direction in which she wishes to take the club. This week has seen Celtic firmly claim the bragging rights in Glasgow, but there is more than just one-upmanship at play. The riches of the Men's Champions League that came with Brendan Rodgers' title win put Celtic into a financial sphere that is unparalleled with anything that has gone before. With the women's team now on course for a potential group stage Champions League involvement, if they can plot a way through the Champions qualification route, Sadiku is confident that there will be support as she looks to enhance her squad. She said, "I have a big trust in the board and a big trust in Chris Duffy. I know that I have the support that I need, and together we are going to do some great things." Peter Lowell and Michael Nicholson were very happy, and it is nice that you can bring something like this to them. They were really happy, and happy for me, for the players, and for the staff. It feels amazing to contribute to make sure that the club wins more trophies and titles. It means a lot, and it is why I came here, to help out as much as possible. I am very happy and very proud. I really believe that we have something special going on now, and we're not going to be happy with thinking that we're going to do great. We want to keep the best players and bring in the best players that we can, and then make something special. We have the chance of competing in Europe. We want to take that chance and do the best we can with it. We want to dominate. Sadiku and the players enjoyed a post-match party at the stadium on Sunday night with a social media clip showing the Swede leading the celebrations with a vintage match-worn Henrik Larsson shirt on. It will take pride of place in Sadiku's office, a framed memorial to the night when she penned her own name into the club's history books. She said, Luana Munoz came, and she had a T-shirt, and she said, "Boss, this is for you." When I saw it, I put it on and had a lap with it. It was a good moment. I have it in the office. I am going to put it up on the wall. The biggest thing that the Swede has learned in her 5 months in Glasgow is that she believes she will get more of her players by seeing them as people rather than pawns of a strategy in a game plan. And she said, I remember when I came here that it did not feel like a big togetherness. What we have done in the last 4 or 5 months, some of the people commented about how great the team is and how good the spirit is. That is what we need to keep building on. I put some of my demands and standards already, but now it needs to change in the foundations, and I need to be able to put more details in because I haven't had time to do it. Report by Alison McConnell. Evening Times Sport, May 21. Forest fires, Celtic focus warning. Report by Graham McGarry. James Forrest has warned Rangers that Celtic are laser focused on lifting the Scottish Cup this weekend after knocking their title celebrations on the head. The Celtic players enjoyed a couple of nights out on the back of their emphatic win against Kilmarnock last midweek that clinched their third Premiership crown in a row. But the experienced winger says that they have already shifted their attention to clinching a double. Forrest says that only when they have safely deposited another trophy in the cabinet will manager Brendan Rodgers allow them to switch off, meaning there will be no title party hangover at Hampden. Said Forrest, you could see our focus when we played Kilmarnock last week. People were saying that we only needed a draw, but we went to a place where we'd lost twice this season and started off well. You could see the confidence in the team, and after enjoying Saturday, our focus goes on to the final. Hopefully, we can get another trophy. In the manager's first spell here, we would do that a lot. I remember winning League Cup finals on the Sunday, and then we had a league game 3 days later. We could not celebrate it back then, but we also bought that winning mentality. He would say to us, you can celebrate down the line, there will be a time. But he would say, if you want to go down in history and look back thinking you won more than one trophy, that's what you need to do. We have to prepare properly and give ourselves the best possible chance to win another one. When you come through at Celtic, every game is a big game. You want to win trophies, and you want to be playing in finals and semi-finals and league deciders, like the Rangers game. These are occasions you want to be involved in. The build-up with the fans, the atmosphere before the game. There is no feeling like it. It's hard to describe, and once you get that feeling a couple of times, you always want it again and look forward to it. If Forrest can get his hands on yet another winner's medal on Saturday, he will be just one behind legendary Celt Bobby Lennox in the club's all-time honours list. And he said, "That is an incentive for me, but winning another trophy for Celtic is the only incentive I need. It has been an unbelievable period, and I don't take any of them for granted. It's just good to feel part of them again. But when you hear those milestones, it is incredible. When I get older, I think I will appreciate even more." Lennox has been honoured for his achievements, with a statue in his hometown of Saltcoats. But Forrest is not holding his breath that the people of his own hometown of Prestwick will be erecting a likeness of him in the town centre any time soon. And he laughed. "I'm not sure about that. I think my family would laugh at that one if I told them it was happening. I don't think that will happen down there." Report by Graham McGarry. Evening Times Sport, May 21. Glasgow businesses hit out after disruption by Celtic supporters. Report by Ben Waddell. Businesses in Glasgow city centre have hit out following damage and disruption caused by football fans at the weekend. We previously reported around 25,000 Celtic supporters gathered in the Merchant City to celebrate the club's third successive Scottish Premiership League win. Due to the celebration, some businesses in the area have since revealed they had to close early, while some chose to stay closed all day. On top of that, businesses have criticised football fans for causing damage and disruption. Speaking to BBC News Scotland, Carriages and Castles, which is a children's clothing shop in the Crongate, said they had a windowsill broken from fans standing on it to get a better view of the crowd. The store, which normally would be open on a Saturday, stayed closed during the title party. Fiona, who is the manager of the shop, said, "Customers cannot get in. It's a children's shop. You don't want to bring children to that. They got scared." The club should be held responsible for the damage that's done. Could they not do that at their club grounds? Because they would not damage that. The previous year it was just fans urinating, but that was easily cleaned. Then you're wondering whether or not you're going to have missing fascias or worse, broken glass, because we don't have shutters, only at the main part. The store manager believes fans should support their teams. They must not destroy things, however. During the celebrations, other shops in the area also had their windows vandalised with graffiti. Meanwhile, bus stops and traffic lights were damaged. Heather Moore, owner of Rose and Grant's coffee shop, believes Glasgow City Council should do more to prepare for events like Saturday's gathering. She said, "I do think the council should offer some sort of area for people to celebrate that's not in the Trongate, where there's businesses just trying to trade as normal. I understand the council do not want to encourage people to celebrate, but they know it's going to happen. The disruption in the Trongate is embarrassing for the city." The coffee shop owner revealed she took the decision to close early on Saturday for the safety of her staff, but said it would have a big financial impact on the cafe, and she continued, "It could potentially cost us thousands of pounds. Things are tight just now, but to have to close the cafe on a Saturday, our busiest day, is quite sad. I understand it's maybe once a year if Celtic win the league, but it's not ideal. Right now I'm sitting looking at a bus stop that's been smashed up, and needs repaired. Disruption was also felt at the Purple Cat Cafe in the Trongate. According to the venue, many of its cats were left scared amid the disturbance. Sheila MacDonald, the supervisor of the cafe, said, "Our cats stay in here 24 hours. They stay downstairs at night time, but they come upstairs in the morning, and while they were up, we had Celtic fans banging on the windows. They are used to loud noises being next to the Royal Infirmary, but they're not used to fireworks and flares going off. Many customers cancelled their visits because of the football fans. We had sessions to run with customers, but it is quite disruptive to the session when people are just trying to have a nice relaxing day with the cats and a coffee, and there's a rowdy party going on outside." The supervisor revealed after 3 years of gatherings in the area, the cafe has started putting measures in place to prevent disruption. She said, "Usually we'll shut early or give staff that live out of town the day off, so I was given the day off. There's not much we can do as a business. We cannot just shut for the day. Along this street, people cannot get into their jobs, customers cannot get to shops, and the whole city gets trashed." The BBC reports green graffiti was spray painted on the outside of the shop, as well as stickers on the window of the cafe. Sheila added, "We do get graffiti on normal days, but when it becomes Celtic and Rangers stuff, it becomes a bit of an issue, because people come to the door and say, 'You need to get that removed.' It takes away from the staff that we have inside, and it's a bit of a pain coming out to scrub the walls." A Glasgow City Council spokesperson told the BBC that unofficial celebrations by both Celtic and Rangers fans had caused significant problems in and around the city over recent years, and said, "The Council continues to believe that one way to reduce the negative impact of these events would be for clubs to offer supporters more opportunities to celebrate safely. The Council, for its part, has always committed to looking at how it can support and facilitate any proposed plans." He added that the local authority had positive destinations with both clubs to discuss organised celebrations. Report by Ben Waddell. Evening Times Sport, May 21. Forest almost left Celtic before game-changing comeback. Report by Graham McGarry. A few months ago, the thought of James Forrest leaving Celtic may have provoked the odd pang of nostalgic sadness among the supporters' base at the departure of a departing legend, but it would also have been widely understood as the best move for both parties. Having struggled to even get into Brendan Rodgers' matchday squad on more than a few occasions, despite the manager proclaiming him to be the best winger at the club, it seemed that a parting of the ways was inevitable. Forrest, at 32, needed to play, and he was behind the likes of Nicholas Kuhn and Yang in the pecking order. From that grim scenario, though, Forrest has exploded back onto the Celtic scene. He has been in sensational form over recent weeks, bringing a renewed freshness and zest to the team's attack that had been lacking from the right wing. So, it is not only the man who is now the second most decorated players in the club's history who is glad he stuck around. Had he followed through on some exploratory chats over his future back in January, who knows where his own career would have turned, or how the title race may have unfolded. Said Forrest, "I did speak to the manager a couple of times, and it was mainly just about getting that chance. Sometimes it does come along, and I have managed to take it. Celtic has always been my number one, and I love playing here and winning stuff. It's unbelievable, but I am at an age where I wanted to play. I'm not 35 or 36. It was a discussion I had with the club, but I was glad when the window shut and that was out of the way. I was going to be here, and my focus was to work hard and hopefully get a chance. You never know how things are going to turn out, but it's been unbelievable. The last few months have been incredible for me, and hopefully the final goes well too. I have always appreciated being here, and I have always loved it. There will be a time, if I did retire or whatever happens, that I'll look back. But Celtic will always be a part of me, and it's great to look back on so many highs and positives. Not that it was easy to be on the outside of the squad looking in for so long this season, but one benefit of the rather bloated numbers on the Celtic books is that Forrest was hardly the only one in that predicament, and he revealed that the fringe men have been driving each other on all season to put the work in so that they can catch their manager's eye. In fact, it is notable just how fit Forrest has appeared since his re-emergence into the Celtic team, with the veteran feeling that his impressive physical condition has been one of the keys to the impact he has been able to make for his side. He said, "It was good, because it wasn't just me in that position. There were 4 or 5 of us who were not in the squad, and maybe when the team was playing, we were at Lennoxtown doing a training session. To be honest, we all pushed each other. It was hard because you didn't know if you would get a chance, but you had to make sure you were ready if you did. There was no point in tossing off the training and not doing it. If you do that, you wouldn't be fit enough and ready when you did get a chance. It's maybe credit to the players I trained with that they kept us going. It would be hard to get it back if you didn't train as hard as you possibly could. Every player at Celtic trains hard, and it was down to that." Forrest, however, does not want his happy ending this season to be an ending to his Celtic career. He has Bobby Lennox's medal record in his sights for a start, but he hopes to have shown over the last couple of months that he still has plenty to offer going into next season and beyond. And he continued, "I am at an age where everyone will talk about my age and that I'm older. I do want to keep playing for as long as I can and for as long as I feel good. I do feel older because I have been here a long time and been through a lot. We do keep signing younger players, but that's the way the club is going. For me, that's good, as even older players can learn off the younger ones. It's good to work with younger boys and older guys. Whenever we sign a winger, I can learn off them, because they can do different stuff. You look at their game and see if you can add something, and that is what I have always tried to do." It is Forrest, though, who is currently putting on something of a masterclass, says Graham McGarry. Kilmarnock update on Gary Mackay-Steven. Report by Robbie Hanratty. Derek McInnes is hopeful that Gary Mackay-Steven will commit his future to Kilmarnock. The 33-year-old penned a short-term deal in December as he looked to improve his fitness following a difficult end to his time at Hearts, before working his way into the first team plans and extending his stay at Rugby Park until this summer. Mackay-Steven has played 10 times for Kilmarnock, with the impressive form of Daniel Armstrong keeping the former Celtic and Aberdeen star on the bench. Despite that, Kilmarnock manager Derek McInnes admitted he has spoken to the winger, who scored against Dundee on the final day of the Scottish Premiership season, and reckons he's back enjoying his football again. Confirmed McInnes, "We have had positive conversation. He is really enjoying it. It has been difficult with the form of Danny Armstrong. It has been difficult to find somewhere else in the team for him. His speed is good. His stats are brilliant in training. His strength and work rate. He feels like a boy who is enjoying being fit after his difficulties at Hearts. Yes, he is not getting any younger, but my eyes tell me everything. He can still hit those high speeds, be strong enough, and affect games. He still has that quality that a club like Kilmarnock should always search for. It is affordable, and hopefully he will jump on board again." Report by Robbie Hanratty. Evening Times Sport, May 21. James Forrest late Celtic redemption should earn Scotland recall. Report by Robbie Hanratty. Ali McCoist reckons James Forrest deserves a sensational Scotland recall, but is not so sure his Celtic teammate Anthony Ralston will feature. The Scotland boss is set to name his 28-man squad tomorrow ahead of Euro 2024, which begins in Munich next month. Ralston has played second fiddle to Alistair Johnston at club level, yet long-term injuries to Aaron Hickey and Nathan Patterson may have kept the international door open. Kieran Tierney has switched over to right-back before, and McCoy thinks that's exactly what Clark will probably do, rather than play someone who has featured just 18 times for his club this season. McCoy's told TalkSport, "Right-back position, obviously, we miss Patterson. What Clark might do is he can play Tierney over that side. He's done that before. He could bring in Ralston, although he's not really played enough this season." Forrest's remarkable end to the campaign, which saw him go from out of favour to a title hero, has provided him with a high chance of making Clark's squad. And even though McCoy dismissed the notion that Forrest could fill in at full back, he does expect the Celtic winger to have impressed enough to make the plane to Germany next month. He said, "I'm not playing him at right back, absolutely no chance. But I think he will probably go to the Euros. His end-of-season form has been excellent, and I think he's probably done enough to get into the squad." Report by Robbie Hanratty. Evening Times Sport, May 21. Nick Rogers says, Robert McIntyre makes major statement with timely United States tonic. I was reading some articles the other day about mindfulness, which is the quality of being present and fully engaged in the moment. And then I got bored. What was I talking about again? Oh yes, mindfulness. Apparently research has shown that the average brain has up to 70,000 thoughts a day. Blimey, I often struggle to rustle up one meaningful thought for this bloomin' column. In that respect, it is perhaps unsurprising that I once received a letter from a cheesed-off reader who suggested that I was shallow and cheap. Given the ongoing cost of living crisis, the cost rose again just there halfway through typing the word cost. I consoled myself with the theory that it's better to be shallow and cheap than deep and expensive. Funnily enough, that's what the sports editor said when he handed me my wages in used 50-pence pieces. Anyway, we certainly all got our money's worth at the 106th United States PGA Championship, didn't we? The second men's major of the season was full of intrigue and incidents, both on and off the course. Xander Schauffele, who's had more close shaves than Victor Kiam promoting his Remington razors, was a wonderfully deserving champion, while the kerfuffle and subsequent arrest of the world number one, Scotty Scheffler, provided a startling snap that will endure like some of the game's most iconic images. For all the wrong reasons, of course. That photographic hall of fame is jam-packed, whether it's the great Seve in his navy Schlesinger V-neck punching the air after that momentous Open conquest at St Andrews in 1984, or Jack Nicklaus hoisting aloft his putter en route to a magical Masters win in 1986, to name just two. The Hall of Infamy, meanwhile, now includes a gloomy police mugshot of Scheffler. At least he's got Tiger Woods for company on that front. I look forward to sitting on the rocking chair in my dotage and explaining to my bewildered grandchildren that, yes, kids, two of the world's best golfers were both nicked by the cops back in my day. On the home front, it was a fine, keep the faith kind of week for our own Robert McIntyre. The Scots eagle on the par 5 final hole was certainly worth plenty. In a stroke, well, 3 actually, he vaulted from 18th playing the last and into a share of 8th, which earned a return to the PGA of America's flagship event next year. His thrilling 3 earned him $300,000 more than a regulation par. It wasn't a bad 570 yards of work. The value of all that to McIntyre's general morale and state of mind will probably be worth much more. Just a couple of weeks ago, on a video conference call with the golf writers, McIntyre wasn't quite his usual perky self. Being confronted by the grisly sight of us lot can do that to people. Not for the first time, McIntyre talked of the challenges that he has faced during his transition to a new way of golfing life in the USA, and a sense of loneliness that could have been accompanied by a yearning Roy Orbison warble. Chasing the American dream is not for everybody. Paul Lawrie, for instance, dipped his toe in the PGA Tour waters after winning the Open in 1999 at Carnoustie, but never settled, and his family back in his native Aberdeen came first. Funnily enough, the golf scribblers were back at shimmering, sun-soaked Carnoustie yesterday for a chinwag with the redoubtable Colin Montgomerie to promote this summer's Senior Open over the formidable Angus Lynx. Monty, despite all his grand achievements during his pomp, never managed to crack America, and a PGA Tour win eluded him amid countless gallant endeavours. Scotland's latest standard-bearer on the global stage is slowly finding his feet, and Monty is quietly confident that McIntyre's valiant Valhalla validation can have him walking tall. Let's hope he can go forward now and feel he belongs on the tour, because that is the key thing, said Montgomerie of the young Scot's statement of intent. Last week was good for him, very good for him. To be in contention, well done him. Classic Monty praise, eh? As McIntyre's American Odyssey continues, the wider golfing world continues to wonder if it's the end of the road for Tiger Woods after another missed cut in another rare outing. Montgomery recently declared that Tiger should have bowed out of major championship golf at the 150th Open in 2022 with a dewy-eyed cap-doffing swan song over the Swilcan Bridge. He stands by that statement. He said, "It's a shame to see Tiger perform the way Tiger is performing. He says he is competitive, but we know playing once a month in a major, 4 times a year, is not competitive. I don't like to see it." Many onlookers, and possibly you late reading this, will agree with Monty's opinion. But then Woods has earned the right to go out on his own terms. He's still convinced he can win, but the evidence remains unconvincing. All and sundry wrote him off before he won the Masters back in 2019. We were spectacularly wrong then, were we not? As the cries of "Tiger must retire now" grow in volume, there's almost a sense that we have to be right this time. Time, of course, will tell, unless Tiger tells us first, says Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport, May 21. Scottish Premiership plastic pitch ban vote brought forward. Report by Joe Donnelly. Scottish Premiership clubs have brought forward a resolution that aims to ban plastic pitches in the top flight of Scottish football. An SPFL board meeting have announced that clubs will be asked to vote on a decision to phase out artificial pitches in the Scottish Premiership. The resolution requires 9 out of 12 votes to be passed. Should that happen, a 2-year grace period will be activated, whereby clubs can plan accordingly. At present, this impacts Kilmarnock only in the top league, with Livingston taking part in the Scottish Championship next season following their relegation. But should the resolution be passed, artificial pitches will not be permitted in the Premiership from season 26-27 onwards. The statement read, "Clubs in the Cinch Premiership have today brought forward a resolution seeking to phase out the use of artificial pitches in the SPFL top flight. The SPFL will now issue the resolution to all Cinch Premiership clubs, and the outcome of that vote will be announced in due course. The resolution requires 9 votes in favour to be passed." The SPFL board has confirmed at a meeting that if the resolution is approved, it will grant a 2-year period to allow clubs with an artificial pitch to plan accordingly, with artificial pitches not permitted in the top division from season 26-27. This period of grace is in line with recommendations of the SPFL Competitions Working Group, which represents member clubs across the SPFL. Separately, the SPFL board has approved plans for a Premiership-wide project to work with a leading pitch consultancy firm, which is regularly used by UEFA, to improve the standards of grass pitches in the Cinch Premiership. Dundee came under fire earlier this season when a waterlogged pitch caused a Scottish Premiership encounter against Rangers to be postponed on 2 occasions. The results of the resolution will be announced in due course. Report by Joe Donnelly. Evening Times Sport, May 21. Graham McGarry says, "Rangers cannot turn to Lundstrom for Celtic midfield battle." There cannot have been too many Old Firm matches in living memory that one set of fans has approached with such trepidation, or rather with such a lack of faith in their players to get a result. But this is where Rangers find themselves ahead of the Scottish Cup final against Celtic at Hampden on Saturday, with issues ranging from ill-judged social media posts to injury woes, particularly in the back line, eroding whatever little confidence they still retained in this squad to get one over their city rivals when it really matters. The league is gone, and soon many of these Rangers players will be gone as well. But can they first see out this season on a high by lifting the famous old trophy and give their fans at least a crumb of comfort heading into next season? Well, of course they can. It is a one-off game, and Rangers still have enough quality in their ranks to pose problems for Celtic. Much will hinge, however, on Philippe Clement's team selection. At the back, as he touched upon, he may have little choice, and that may impact what he can do in the midfield area, as Dujon Sterling may have to step back in there again to deputise for either Ben Davis or John Souttar. Clement will be hoping that is not required, as he will surely now recognise that Rangers' best chance of success is to choose a midfield that can at least get close to Celtic's brilliant trio of Captain Callum McGregor, Matt O'Reilly and Rio Hatate. McGregor and O'Reilly in particular had a field day against Rangers in the recent win at Celtic Park, and that was before John Lundstrom had his second rush of blood to the head and was sent off for his wild challenge on Alistair Johnston. It would be a shame for that incident to come to be the defining memory of Lundstrom's time at Ibrox, but it also neatly exemplified why he should not start the game at Hampden. He was off the pace from the start, was unable to exert any influence on his direct opponent, and his frustration eventually bubbled over. Clement has shown himself to be a very decent manager over the piece since his arrival in Glasgow, but his refusal to give any concession to Celtic by formulating a plan to stop McGregor running the game last time out was a huge mistake. Celtic currently have better players, and for all their faults, the final league table spells out in black and white that they are the better team. So, in such circumstances, it would be a dereliction of duty and hubristic to ignore that fact. Common sense would dictate, then, that Sterling has to play in the centre of the pitch, if at all possible, and be tasked with at least laying a glove on McGregor to stymie his influence. Mohamed Diamond did not have the best of games at Celtic Park either, but he has shown more than enough since his arrival to retain his place in the middle alongside Sterling, while Nico Raskin, who Clement has yet to be seen to really fancy, would be my pick to pick up and make up a combative and energetic trio. That may still not be enough for Rangers, given that they come into this test short on key personnel and even shorter in confidence. But, in theory, it could at least provide a platform for the likes of Todd Cantwell, Fabio Silva or Abdallah Sima to affect the game further up the pitch. Whether the first two names on that list have it in them to do so in such a fixture remains to be seen, but Rangers simply have to try to nullify the influence of the Celtic midfield to give themselves a foothold in the contest, and then try to get the ball to their creative players with more regularity. It perhaps says a lot about what Clement feels about his midfield options, that he chose to all but bypass that area in the game at Celtic Park. But if Rangers can find a way to have some more controlled possession, that should alleviate the pressure at least a little on what is sure to be a makeshift defence. With Lundstrom in the team last time out, control was lacking for Rangers between the boxes, and sadly, between his ears. After resurgence in form immediately following Clement's arrival, Lundstrom's performance levels have regressed to the lower standard he was exhibiting in the early part of the season under Michael Beale. Has his contract situation and the uncertainty over his future affected his focus? Only he could say, but what he showed at Celtic Park was an inability to control such a game and to control his emotions. Rangers need energy, focus and discipline from their midfield at Hampden, and these are qualities that Sterling, Diamond and Raskin would bring to the table. Sadly, it seems that on recent evidence, fine servant to Rangers as he has been, the same cannot currently be said for Lundstrom, says Graham McGarry. Evening Times Sport, May 21. Scotland assistant outlines reason for 28-man warm-up squad. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Scotland assistant John Carver has explained why manager Steve Clarke will name a 28-man squad for the Euro 2024 warm-up matches against Gibraltar and Finland, as he confirmed that Aaron Hickey and Nathan Patterson have both been ruled out of the finals. The national team manager will announce which players he has selected for the friendly internationals in Faro on Monday, June 3 and Glasgow on Friday, June 7. At Hampden tomorrow. Organised UEFA last month increased the number of players who the 24 participating countries can take to the finals in Germany from 23 to 26, as was the case at Euro 2020. But Clarke will initially select 28 players because he is keen to assess the fitness of squad members who have been sidelined with injuries or have not had much game time in recent weeks. He has until 11 p.m. on Friday, June 7 to submit his final Euro 2024 squad. It had been hoped that Brentford full-back Hickey, who has not played since October due to a hamstring injury, and Everton defender Nathan Patterson, who underwent an operation last month, could recover in time to feature in the Group A matches against Germany, Switzerland and Hungary. However, Carver stated the pair would both miss out. We are now going to take it up to 28, he said at a media event in Manchester to promote the football coaching programme, which has been launched by digital bank Chase. The deadline to name the final squad is June 7, so we have had a think about it, and we think it is worthwhile bringing in 28 because we have got a number of players we need to have a look at. We have got all the data on everybody, how many minutes they have been playing, where they are in their fitness, so I think it is worth bringing them into camp. Then we can actually see them day to day, and then we have obviously got the 2 games as well, so we can look at them real closely before Steve eventually finally names the 26. Carver admitted he was bitterly disappointed that Hickey, Patterson and Bologna midfielder Lewis Ferguson had all been ruled out of Euro 2024, but expressed confidence the trio will grace the finals of a major tournament on many occasions in the future. And he continued, "Let's just touch on the three lads in particular who have serious injuries and are out for a period of time. We knew they were going to be out, and they have been excellent. They have played a big part, and I am devastated they are not going to be part of it. But they are such a young group of players. They are going to have Euros in the future to attack. So there is nothing we can do. We cannot affect that. They got injured at their clubs, and we cannot affect it. But we have to be as positive as we can about what we do have and how we are going to attack the Euros. It is no good thinking what could have been and what we could have had. It is about what we've got and what we're going to do." Report by Matthew Lindsay.
From the Glasgow Times, Wednesday 22nd of May 2024, Sports Section. Junior football stars heading to Glasgow for Legends Tournament by Anne Fotheringham, Senior Features Writer. Famous faces from the world of Scottish junior football are coming together in Govan next month to support a city charity tackling prejudice and bigotry. Hosted by Benburb FC, the Legends 7-a-side tournament boasts former players from leading junior clubs, such as fellow Govan team St Anthony's, Arthurlie from Barrhead, and Ayrshire clubs Beath and Largs. The event will raise money for Nil by Mouth's United Against Division programme, which works in schools across West Central Scotland to help young people understand the impact of sectarianism on society. The winners of the competition, which takes place on June the 8th at New Tinto Park, take home the Alex Gurley Cup, named in honour of a much-loved figure in the world of junior football. Over the last 12 months, Nil by Mouth, which was set up by former Glasgow Times Scotswoman of the Year, Cara Henderson, after the brutal sectarian murder of her school friend Mark Scott, has delivered the United Against Division project in more than 100 schools across Scotland. Since its inception, the charity has worked with tens of thousands of people in schools, workplaces and communities. Legends organiser and lifelong Arthurlie fan Robert Burns said, "Part of the reason so many people are drawn to junior football is the connection between the clubs and the community they are based in. That's why we want to use the event to promote the work Nil by Mouth does in these areas. This will be the 15th Legends event, and we always get a great turnout from supporters and players keen to see old friends and renew old rivalries. I hope as many people as possible get themselves down to Benburb and see some of the real legends of the junior game strut their stuff." Nil by Mouth director Dave Scott said, "We're indebted to the hard work of Robert and the other volunteers for putting this event together in support of our work. Huge thanks must go to Benburb, who are providing the facility at no cost and always make visitors very welcome. It's a smashing setup at New Tinto Park, and it's a proper family day out with children provided entry free of charge. In previous years, this event has raised thousands of pounds to support our work in schools, and it's a reminder that while there are big personalities in junior football, there are even bigger hearts." He added, "It's fair to say we receive a lot of complaints about the behaviour of football fans, but it should also be remembered that there are so many more who go the extra mile to support good causes and events that bring people together." That article was by Anne Fotheringham. From the Glasgow Times, Wednesday 22nd of May 2024, Sports Section. Gerrard gives Tavernier and Goldson Rangers transfer raid clue by Ewan Payton, sports writer. Stephen Gerrard has offered an insight into what he's looking for as he aims to tackle his third transfer window as El Ettifaq manager, and it seems that Rangers players James Tavernier and Connor Goldson fit the bill. The former Ibrox boss is desperate to add some much-needed experience to his side as they aim to give a better fist of things in the Saudi Pro League next season, with the club languishing in 6th position despite a hefty outlay on players last year. It was previously reported that both players were on the wish list of the hierarchy at Edifac after Gerard's recommendation. Philippe Clement has already stated his desire to keep hold of both men, with the Ibrox stalwarts set to play a major role in the club's future under the Belgium. However, Gerard may test the resolve of his former club with an offer or two this summer, as he seeks the knowledge of more experienced pros ahead of the 2024-2025 campaign. Speaking to media outlet Ashark, Gerard said, "We will evaluate the situation and identify the strengths and weaknesses. We must be prepared to meet what the team needs to appear better. We realise that our team has developed, but there is still a lot of work to do. We're building a good team, and we seek to enter the summer transfer market in a way that makes us the best in the Saudi League, as we did in the last transfer market, where our signings were reasonable and very strategic. Knowledge must be transferred to the Saudi League, so we need experience. That is what I also want to do while I'm here, but there are things that Saudi players must do to improve. There's a lot of work that must be done." That article was by Ewan Payton. From the Glasgow Times, Wednesday 22nd of May 2024. Sports section. Newcastle clue that may see Tino Livramento join Scotland, by Ewan Payton, sports writer. Scotland fans have been given hope that Tino Livramento could pledge his allegiance to the country before Euro 2024. The right-back is eligible to play for Scotland through his mum, although has yet to commit to his international future, with England and Portugal also an option for the defender. Steve Clarke has somewhat of a crisis at right-back ahead of this summer's major tournament in Germany, with both Nathan Patterson and Aaron Hickey ruled out through injury. So that has left a gaping hole in the selection choice for the head coach, with Anthony Ralston the only other recognised right-back who usually receives a call-up to the men's A-team squad. It's no secret that the Scottish FA have been keeping tabs on the impressive 21-year-old Premier League talent. Now, though, it seems the biggest hint yet has been dropped that he has chosen to represent Scotland on the international stage. Newcastle are down to play in 2 friendly matches just days after the completion of the EPL season. Most notably, for United's game against an A-League All-Stars team, Livramento has not been included in Eddie Howe's 29-man squad for the trip. There are places for Harvey Barnes, Elliot Anderson and Harrison Ashby, though all of whom were hopefuls for Scotland at one stage last year. Whether Livramento's exclusions from Newcastle's end-of-season tour is indeed a clue about his international involvement with Scotland or not, we will find out at 11 a.m. this morning, when Clarke names his provisional squad for Euro 2024. The former Kelly boss is able to name 28 players before cutting 2 for his final player pool next month, following friendly games against Gibraltar and Finland. The Euros get underway on Friday, June the 14th, in a little under 4 weeks' time. That article was by Ewan Payton.
Evening Times Sport, May 27. Josh Kerr breaks 39-year-old national record. Report by Martin Macmillan. Josh Kerr smashed Steve Cram's 39-year-old national record to claim victory in the mile race at the Diamond League meeting in Eugene, Oregon. The Scottish runner won a highly anticipated showdown with Norwegian rival Jakob Ingebrigtsen thanks to a remarkable world-leading run of 3 minutes 45.34 seconds. Cram had held the British record since 1985 with a time of 3 minutes 46.32 seconds. Olympic 1500 metres champion Ingebrigtsen, who was stunned by Kerr in that event at last year's World Championships in Budapest, finished second, with Britain's Neil Gourley and Jake Whiteman in 4th and 5th places respectively. Earlier, Keely Hodgkinson produced a dominant display to win the women's 800 metres. the 22-year-old clocked a world-leading time of 1 minute 55.78 seconds, while compatriot Gemma Ricci was third, behind Kenyan Mary Moraa in a time of 1 minute 57.45 seconds. Sprinter Dinah Asher-Smith came third in the women's 100 metres in a season's best time of 10.98 seconds. Compatriot Daryl Nita finished fourth in 11 seconds. Laura Muir continued preparations for this summer's Olympics in Paris with fourth place in the women's 1500 metres in a season's best 3 minutes 56.35 seconds. The Tokyo 2020 silver medalist said, "I want to be in the best shape I can for August, so it's a step towards that to run 56 seconds in May. It's very promising." Evening Times Sport, May 27. Rangers receive boost ahead of Champions League qualifying. Report by Ewan Payton. Rangers have been handed a welcome Champions League qualifying boost. It has been confirmed that Philippe Clement's side will be seeded in both the third qualifying round and then the play-off round should they progress to that stage. That comes after Europa League winners Atalanta secured a top 4 finish in Serie A. The Bergamo side had already booked their slot in next season's new-look Champions League phase with their emphatic 3-0 win over Bayer Leverkusen in Dublin on Wednesday night. But that success, coupled with their now confirmed top 4 finish on the domestic scene, means that Rangers will be seeded for qualifying amid the knock-on effect of Italy having 5 teams participating in next season's continental tournament. Atalanta's result also sees Benfica skip UCL qualifying, as they will enter the league phase automatically. So all of this means Rangers have, in theory, an easier path to joining Celtic in the proper competition. With their new place as a seeded team for the third qualifying round, for example, Lille is no longer a potential opponent. As things stand, Fenerbahce, FC Twente, Union San-Gilloise and Dynamo Kiev are the unseeded teams for that round. While Chiefs at Rangers will be pleased with the knock-on from Atalanta's end-of-season success, Hearts will be less so. The picture still looks pretty for Stephen Naismith and his team, as they are guaranteed Europa Conference League phase football at the very least. However, the possibility of them getting a bye into the Europa League was cancelled out with Atalanta's result over Torino, and so they will indeed have to play in the play-off qualifier for that competition. By becoming Scottish champions for the third season in a row last week, Celtic sealed their automatic spot in next season's Champions League. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, May 27. Clark satisfied that Scotland refuseniks will regret choice. Report by Graham McGarry. It felt as though the whole of Scotland, while those with an interest in football anyway, were waiting with bated breath last week as Steve Clarke finally named his 28-man provisional squad for the European Championships. Most of the names that were on the original 60-man list he had scribbled down would have been in tenterhooks too, desperately hoping they had made the cut. 2 more players will be lopped off and left behind before Scotland board the plane to Germany, and no one wants to be among them. It is all a far cry from the early days of Clark's tenure, when he was struggling to put a squad together. There were plenty of able bodies, but the national team's head coach admits he was surprised by how few were willing. How things have changed, and Clark could not resist a wry smile of satisfaction as he recalled those early refuseniks and reminded them of what they have missed out as Scotland have surged back to a level where participation in major tournaments is becoming the norm once again. Said Clark, "I remember in my first week I made a lot of phone calls and actually got a lot of rejections from people who did not want to come with the national team. They did not know that we'd be as good as we have been, so some of them have missed out on a really good journey. It's amazing to think that now, but here we are, 5 years later, and there will be some of them who wish they'd been more positive to that initial phone call. But that's the evolution we've had, and hopefully there's more to come. If you look through the squad, there are a number of players who are 32 or 33, so will be 34 or 35 come the next tournament. Craig Gordon will be 43, so there will be more evolution in the future, no matter who the head coach is. Ben Doak can be one going forward, so let's have a look. I don't think I get many rejections now. I'm sure there will be a number of players out there now who are disappointed not to make the provisional squad. But as James Forrest has proved, the door's never closed. It's not nice to be excluded from a squad, but it's part of football. James is the example. If you continue to work hard and be professional, you never know what can happen. Far from begging people to join up with the Scotland squad now, Clark has adopted a position of being open to advances rather than chasing answers. This is particularly the case when it comes to those players who may still be mulling over which nation it is they wish to represent, such as Newcastle United quartet Elliot Henderson, Harvey Barnes, Shea Gordon, and Tino Livramento. Was he tempted recently, though, to reach out to Livramento at least, given the injury situation in the right wing-back positions? He said, "These things people will never know. I have had private conversations with a lot of people. That's all I'll say on that. I don't think it's fair that I sit here and discuss players who can play for other countries. I know what I'm doing." As unflappable as Clark normally is, he concedes that the way Scotland's players have been dropping like flies over the last few weeks has been a concern, as well as Aaron Hickey and Nathan Patterson in that right wing-back role. He lost midfielder Lewis Ferguson and even backup striking option Jacob Brown. But he is confident that the men he does have available, touch wood, have more than enough about them to make history in Germany and become the first collection of Scottish players to get through the group stage of a major tournament. And he deadpanned. Was I panicking when there was a couple of weekends when players were going down injured? Aye. Listen, it's part of the game. In March I said that I knew we'd probably lose players to injury. Historically, it's usually 2 in every camp. But this time it's 4 who would have been picked or close to being picked in Jacob Brown, Nathan Patterson, Aaron Hickey and Lewis Ferguson. It was disappointing because I had to make 4 sad phone calls, but I had to re-emphasise to all of them that they're young enough to make the next tournament. That has to be their focus. They have to realise it's not just about the injury that puts them out of the Euros. It's an injury they have to overcome to make sure they're ready for the next stage of their career. They're all young enough to be ready for the World Cup. They should be disappointed to miss this one, but they have to be ready for the next. I would think over the last 5 years since I took the job, we have progressed a lot. We have improved a lot, on and off the pitch. If you look at all the players, their careers are on an upward trajectory, which is great. It's what you want. It is what I had in my mind when I started talking about being consistent with my players, picking more players regularly, trying to build up this core group. If you look at the number of caps, we should be in a much better place. I think we are in a much better place going into this tournament than we were in the last tournament. We have tournament experience. Hopefully, that shows on the pitch. Report by Graham McGarry. Evening Times Sport, May 27. Susan Ecclestaff says, Rafa Nadal's final French Open campaign marks the end of an era. For quite some time, the vultures, in the shape of physiotherapists and medical professionals, have been circling above Rafa Nadal. It seems inevitable that, in the end, these predators, or to be more accurate, those evaluating and assessing Nadal's physical state, will prevail. The 37-year-old's body has been crumbling for a while now. For a player who has invariably been regarded as one of the most physically adept athletes that tennis has ever seen, his body has never quite played ball. Or perhaps it's because he's quite so physical that his body has never quite played ball. After all, it's hardly surprising that when an individual plays every single point like their life depends on it, whether in competition or in training, their body will break down occasionally. This is what's happened to Nadal over the years, but now the injury layoffs are outnumbering the periods of fitness. What's so notable about the Spaniard's current injury predicament is that it's not merely signalling the end of his career, it's signalling the end of an era, the like of which no other sport has ever witnessed. Nadal will, it seems likely, although he's yet to confirm definitively, take to the court of the 2024 French Open, which begins at Roland Garros with his first round as tough as they come, having been drawn to face Alexander Zverev. The next 2 weeks will almost certainly be the last time we'll ever see Nadal on the clay of Roland Garros. And while in almost all cases, a single athlete is never bigger than a sporting event as a whole, it is arguable Nadal and the French Open is the one case in which this theory does not apply. Nadal's record at the French Open is, I would suggest, the greatest record in the history of not only tennis, but sport as a whole. His stats at Roland Garros are truly unparalleled. The Spaniard played his first French Open in 2005 at the age of just 18 and won it. It was the first title in what would turn out to be a truly incredible run at the tournament, widely considered to be the most physically demanding Grand Slam in the tennis calendar. After that inaugural tournament victory 19 years ago, Nadal successfully defended his title 3 times, equaling Bjorn Borg's Open-era record of 4 consecutive titles at the tournament. A surprise 4th-round defeat to Swede Robin Soderling in 2009 was but a mere blip in Nadal's French Open record. From 2010 until 2022, he won 10 titles at Roland Garros, losing only twice, both times to Novak Djokovic in 2015 and in 2021, while he withdrew from the 2016 tournament, having progressed to the third round. As things stand, Nadal has 14 French Open titles and boasts a win-loss record of 112 wins and only 3 losses at the tournament, prompting Roger Federer to call Nadal's French Open record one of the greatest achievements in sport. It is impossible to disagree, which is why the impending end of Nadal's career and the prospect of a Nadal-free French Open is quite so hard to fathom. The French Open without Nadal is almost impossible to wrap one's mind around. We had a taste of what it would be like in 2023 when the Spaniard was absent due to injury. But a year ago, there was always the sense that he would be back. This year, the feeling that he'll return is nowhere near as strong, and so we must begin preparing for Nadal departing Roland Garros for the last time. It would of course be the fairy tale ending if Nadal could win his 15th French Open title in a fortnight's time. At first glance, such a suggestion seems entirely outlandish given the season he's had. The 37-year-old's past year has been decimated by injury. He's played only 4 tournaments and not reached even a semi-final in any of them. He's lost to players that a few years ago would not have troubled him in the slightest, particularly on clay. And so logic suggests this French Open campaign will be less of a tilt at the title and more of a farewell to the tournament that has seen Nadal become as close to unbeatable as anyone has ever been in sport. Quote Philippe Chatrier, on which Nadal has won all 14 of his titles, has become the Mallorcan's second home. People talk about certain athletes having an aura in particular arenas, and never has that been more true than Nadal at the French Open. Only a select few players have ever had the belief they could defeat Nadal at Roland Garros, and even fewer have actually done it. And so this final swan song of Nadal's will truly be the end of an era. The French Open as a tournament will go on without Nadal, but it will be years before his name stops being mentioned on a regular basis. In fact, it is likely his name will always be recalled on a regular basis on the grounds of Roland Garros, as it's a certainty that his record of 14 French Open titles will never be surpassed. Such consistency and long-lasting success in sport is unspeakably hard to achieve, and while some claim it is boring to watch one person win title after title, I would argue such prolonged greatness is infinitely more interesting to watch than the variability that comes with a different winner each year. Many people can win one title, fewer can win several, and only one can win 14. The odds are that Nadal will not win a 15th on his finale at Roland Garros, but the odds also were that no one would win 14 titles. And look what happened, says Susan Egglestaff. Evening Times Sport, May 27. Rangers' nearly men come up short again, says Graham McGarry. Rangers must be wondering what they have to do to beat Celtic, and they might never have had a better chance. On a muggy afternoon at Hampden, They matched the champions stride for stride, and in the second half were even the better team. They had a goal disallowed, Abdallah Simmer's joy, and that of the 25,000-odd Rangers fans at that end of the National Stadium, being cut short as it transpired that Nico Raskin had pushed Joe Hart under James Tarnavie's corner. That included one topless gentleman who showed impressive agility to perform several cartwheels behind the goal, and who must have felt a little silly a minute or two later as he clambered back over the wall with a VAR check pending. But even after that blow, Rangers still came at Celtic, Philippe Clement eventually managing, it seemed, to concoct a plan to stymie Celtic's main men and give his team a fighting chance. And Celtic looked tired as the second half wore on. Brendan Rodgers' side seemed to be running on empty. If anyone was going to score, you fancied it would be Rangers. But Celtic are champions and have dominated the domestic scene for over a decade now, for a reason. Even when the chips are down, they have players who can tap into a seemingly endless reserve of courage and know-how, and they invariably come out the other side, holding the trophy aloft. This time it was not the usual suspects like Callum McGregor, Matt O'Reilly or Kyogo Furuhashi that stepped up to the plate, but two members of their supporting cast from the substitutes bench. Paulo Bernardo produced the burst and shot that proved too hot for Jack Butland to handle, and Adam Ida was on hand to slam home in the dying embers of the 90 minutes. Cue Bedlam as the Celtic end, which had become more muted as the game wore on, exploded, and thousands of pairs of shoulders in the Rangers' end simultaneously slumped in wearily familiar fashion. They had seen this movie before. Indeed, the match was the season in microcosm. Celtic had a measure of dominance early on without being near their best. They wobbled at times, Rangers huffed and puffed, but they just could not blow their rivals down. And just as in the title race, victory was there for the Ibrox men to reach out and grasp. At the last, though, Celtic surged to kill them off, and it is they who again head off into the sunset with the silver. The contest was more slow burner than barnstormer. Hampden crackled to the sound of fireworks beforehand, but they were absent on the pitch for the most part in terms of the football that was played. Instead, tension hung as heavily in the air as the thick plumes of smoke that billowed from both ends of the old bowl as the teams emerged. Celtic were first to clear their heads, taking a hold of the ball without admittedly really doing all that much with it. And pitted against their plan to seize control was Rangers' preference for chaos, being more direct whenever they nicked the ball back, and trying to bring the physical mismatch between Dujon Sterling and Greg Taylor into play whenever they could. Dazen Maida was getting the better of James Tavernier just for a change, and it was in these wide areas where the intrigue lay. The contest between Alistair Johnson and Fabio Silva, so compelling at Celtic Park recently, was evenly fought once again. It was expected that the second half would continue as the first had ended, with Celtic dominating the ball and Rangers looking for the rope-a-dope. But as it wore on, it was Rangers who seemed to be growing in stature, while Celtic looked as though they were running out of energy and ideas. They have been in scintillating form of late, but all of the verve and swagger was draining from their play. Had Simmer's goal stood, and the push from Raskin appeared unnecessary, then there surely would have been doubts about their capacity to recover. Mind you, it is when they are doubted that Celtic seem to find the answers, and just when it seemed as though they would have to drag their weary bodies through another half an hour of this, they came up with the moment that mattered. Perhaps avoiding extra time was the incentive they needed. For Rangers it was a case of so near, yet so far once again. It is something of a shame that Butland, their standout performer throughout the campaign, was the man who will be held responsible, spilling Bernardo's shot into the path of Ida. That Scott Wright allowed a pass to dribble under his foot to allow Celtic to spring the decisive attack will likely be overlooked. Rangers were relatively good, but not quite good enough. Celtic were poor by their own standards, but still emerged victorious. So Rangers may well wonder how they allowed this cup to slip from their grasp. But the truth is, just as in the league, it was Celtic who eventually showed the minerals to reach out and grab it, says Graham McGarry.
That concludes this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Q and Review and to tell your friends about our service